Welcome to the English Breakthrough for Germans podcast. This podcast is for German English learners who found their school English classes weren't enough and who would like to forget language learning apps and take control of the learning process themselves. I'm your host, Mike Budden from Australia, and I've been a language teacher for 12 years, teaching both English and German. And on this podcast, I give my listeners regular listening practice in English through anecdotes and interviews, and I discuss effective learning strategies which I used myself to reach C2 German and which I have seen work again and again through my learners. This week, I'm excited to talk to a good friend of mine, Caitlin. Caitlin is from Australia too, and we met in Sydney when she was actually a student of mine in a class learning German at the Goethe Institute. Caitlin stood out to me because she was a very diligent learner, and it was clear that she was also putting in a lot of time to learn German outside of class as well. So I've talked on the podcast before about how I believe it's a myth that you have to move to a country to learn a language, and Caitlin really proves that this is not true because she reached a very high level of German before she even set foot in Germany. I've asked her to come onto this podcast so we can talk about her journey together, and I'm very happy to have her here to do that.
Thanks for having me.
On the podcast, Caitlin. Yeah, so you're from Australia. Actually, I thought I would just start with something not language learning related, because I know this is a question that we Australians constantly get asked by Germans over here, which is, why did you move to Germany? And you and I both understand that this question really means, why did you move away from Australia?
Yeah.
I think so. What do you answer to that question when people ask you?
I think I always say it was always my wish to live and work overseas, and I'd always assumed that it would be in an English-speaking country like the US or in the UK. But then I started learning German, and then the reason why I moved to Germany was because I really enjoyed learning German, and I did get to a pretty good level. So I thought, why not try living in Germany and see how it goes? So I applied to work, and then that's how I ended up here.
Okay. And so you have told me before that you and your family challenged yourselves to learn different languages. So I guess, how did you decide to learn German, and was moving to Germany independent of learning German?
So definitely the language learning came first. So during the first lockdown in Australia in 2020, I was living in Sydney at the time, but my apartment just got sold, so I had to move back to Melbourne, and I was living with my parents for 3 months. And in that time, my sister was she'd just started learning Korean on Duolingo. And because we're all in lockdown together, we're all in the same house, she encouraged the rest of the family to also pick a language on Duolingo and just start learning.
Yeah, okay.
So my other sister picked French, and I was like, well, I'll also do French because I did a bit of French at school. I didn't do it in year 12, but I was like, yeah, I can improve that a bit maybe. But then she was like, no, I picked French, you have to pick a different language. And I was like, well, I don't know what to do. And at that point, my dad walked into the kitchen, and he used to work for a German company, and he doesn't speak German at all, but he'd been to Germany on business trips, and he said, Caitlin, I think you should just try learning German. I think it would fit you somehow, like maybe with your personality and so I was like, okay, didn't really have any other reason, but just downloaded Duolingo that day and just started and went from there.
Yeah, wow. Okay. So you didn't have any, other ideas about Germany that came to mind at that time, like cultural things? Like if you think about France, maybe you think about the food and the Eiffel Tower, but for you, there were no real cultural connections to Germany at all.
I honestly, at that point, I don't think I even knew that the word for hello was hallo. I knew nothing about the German language. I had no German friends. I'd never been to Germany. Literally, I didn't watch, German TV shows, or, I wasn't really aware of big German celebrities or anything like that. It was completely foreign.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So when you and I met, I think we met when you were at about a B1 level. Is that right?
Yes. So yeah.
You'd been studying for a little while already, yeah.
Yeah. So once the lockdown in Sydney lifted a bit, I moved back to Sydney, and I was still doing a bit of Duolingo, but then I decided I wanted to actually take it seriously, and I enrolled in an A1.1 course at the Goethe Institute. So that was in, I think, term 2 in 2021.
Okay.
And so then I did 2021, and I went through A1 and A2, and then I think we met term 1 2022 in B1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Goethe Institute has the structure of the course where you do the reading and the listening and stuff online as well. So, did that give you a bit of extra momentum in your self study, would you say?
I think it was definitely the starting point, but I think pretty early on I realized that I just had so much fun with learning the language that I just started to kind of branch off and do my own thing. Even like in the A1 courses, I was like, oh, what if I could try and find something that I could read? Or what if I find something that I could listen to? Or what's some German music? And so I like already from even A1.1, I started doing a lot more in my free time.
Yeah, okay. And why do you think it was so fun for you? Like, not everybody is motivated to go and look for extra things outside class. So, why did you?
I'm not sure. I think it was a combination of like the right hobby at the right time because with the lockdowns, a lot of my other activities that I was doing, like I was in sports teams and doing other classes, they were kind of
Mm,
on a bit of a break. So it was something that I could put a lot of time into. And I think I always really liked school. I was one of these nerds that enjoyed doing homework like I didn't enjoy taking exams, but I was always quite like good at taking exams. And I think it tapped into that. And I was like, oh, I can see progress. And if I,
yeah.
study a bit, then I can see myself improving and, talking with the teacher or the other students. So
Yeah, cool. And what did study look like at that time? Like, you said that you enjoyed it, so you were able to see your progress. So how were you
yeah.
able to see that progress?
I think the first thing I started to do was watch a lot of videos on YouTube, and Easy German I found pretty early on. And
Mm,
I think just like I watched a whole ton of their videos, and over time I could understand more or focus maybe more on the German subtitles than the English subtitles that they have. Um, but yeah, just doing the homework as well from at the Goethe Institute, like I really tried to put a lot of effort into, a little writing task. I would maybe do it multiple times so I could really practice. Or
yeah,
the little speaking task that you had to do. I would do it maybe
yeah.
10 times mm,
Okay.
to
Yeah.
like try and practice the pronunciation as much as possible.
Yeah. So Easy German, in case people aren't aware, that's a YouTube channel where you can listen to authentic interviews with people on the street. So it's not language learning. It's not created specifically for language learning, but just authentic interviews.
Mm.
So you obviously were interested in getting some authentic listening. So you branched out from just the course book or the Goethe Institute course, and you were interested in listening to actual German speakers speaking spontaneously.
Yes. And at the start, I
Yeah.
really understood nothing, but I listened to it anyway. So,
Yeah. Okay. um, and you mentioned you enjoyed doing the voice recordings as well. So that was a
mhm.
component of the Goethe Institute course that for homework, even from A11, you would have to record your voice saying certain things. Um, did you consciously decide to master the pronunciation and the sounds that are difficult for English speakers?
Yes, I think, um, not like as a because I'd never really tried to learn another language to a high level before. But I think, from, speaking English with other people that had learned English before, having good pronunciation really makes the comprehensibility a lot easier,
Yeah.
to understand. So it was something that I tried to work on. And I remember like walking around my apartment and trying to get that like rolled R sound or practicing the CH sounds in German,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
over and over and over and over again
Yeah.
until I could do it. Like,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, trying to watch other videos of like how do you pronounce that ch sound because we don't have it at all, and like different things of like, oh, you say the word huge, and then it's kind of similar to that, and then you cut it off
Yeah.
here, and you do this with your mouth or whatever.
And how long do you, I don't know if you would remember this, but like before, when you're able to master a sound, from when you sort of start practicing a sound until you master it, how long do you think that would take or took for you?
A long time, months, I would say. Like
Okay.
I remember with the R sound especially, I could get it with like a TR or like a KR. Like I could
Mm,
say like krank or trink, but then it took longer to have it with the R at the start or,
yeah.
with different combinations of letters. So some came easier than others, but yeah,
Yeah.
a
Okay.
long time, like a long, long time.
And I think you and I have spoken as well about shortly after maybe you moved to Berlin and you started
Mm.
speaking it more regularly, but you hadn't been living here for so long. Just a sort of difference in how natural it feels. Like for me personally, it took a lot of energy to speak German early on, but it started to feel more natural. Do you feel like it's quite different in your mouth when you're speaking German compared to English?
I I think no, I would say no.
Okay.
But then it's hard to, yeah, I'm not sure. Like you've heard me speak German and English. I don't know if you would say like my voice is at a different pitch or something in German compared to English. Um, but yeah, for me, it feels natural to speak both languages, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Interesting. And I think around the time that you were in my class as well, you said, or you told me later, I can't remember when you told me this,
Mm.
but you'd set yourself this goal of listening. Could you tell us about that goal?
So I actually set goals for all four of the like core areas of language
Okay.
learning.
So like listening,
Um,
speaking, reading, writing.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Okay.
this was my um, New Year's resolution for 2022. Was this like German learning plan. And I deliberately didn't tie it to like a level in the end. Like I didn't say, oh, okay, by the end of 2022, I want to be B2 or whatever. But it was really just tied to like activities and hours. So it was, I would read 10 books, do 100 hours of speaking practice, do 1,000 hours of listening practice, and write 10,000 words. And then
Wow.
on top of that, I had like a separate goal to watch 50 German films
In 1 year, 50
in
films.
1 year. In one
Oh
year,
my
yeah.
God. Okay. I don't think I could even find 50 German movies, let alone watch
I
them.
Yeah, everything that came on Netflix, SBS on demand, anything that was in the cinema in Sydney, like it didn't matter what it was. If it was in German, I watched it. Like
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
yeah, things that I wouldn't normally watch, random documentaries, random criminal movies, yeah, anything.
Yeah, okay. Okay. That's super interesting. A lot of people say like you really need a motivation, you had a partner who spoke the language or you got a job there, but that really wasn't the case for you. You just had this motivation or you were motivated by the learning process, I think. I think you, from what I can
Yes.
see from the
Yeah.
outside, you really felt like this is great. I'm getting a lot out of it. I'm really making progress. It's so satisfying. Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, I think it was all this intrinsic motivation. Like it just came from wanting, like from enjoying the process
Yeah.
and from being able to see the progress that I was making. And yeah, I think I just wanted to get better for myself. Like there wasn't another goal of, at that time, I wasn't really thinking about moving to Germany. I also, at that time, also didn't have any German friends still, and I'd never been to Germany, even on holidays. So it
Yeah. Yeah.
was
And at that point, you
not really
didn't.
concerned as well.
You had a job and you're lucky enough to be able to move over to Germany and keep working for the same company, but you didn't know that at that time, did you?
No, I knew there were offices there, but I was still more, I think at that time, looking into options to work in the US.
Yeah.
I remember talking to people in the US about, opportunities for me to go over to San Francisco. And it wasn't until later in that year that I really decided I was like, okay, I should go to Germany. I think it's
Yeah,
the right.
yeah, okay. Okay, so you talked about reading 10 books and then the speaking hours and the listening hours. How did you build up your speaking hours? Because that's something that's difficult for people to do on their own.
Most of my speaking hours came through italki. So I had an italki account, and maybe 4 or 5 times a week, I would book a half an hour slot to just talk to someone on italki. So it was unstructured conversation. There was a mix of some language teachers and some, like, I think they're called community tutors. So they don't have a language teaching background or anything, but they're just there
Mhm.
to support people on italki and talk to them.
Okay. And did you think of things that you wanted to talk about in those lessons, or did you just turn up and you let the teachers ask you questions?
I think a mix. So often I would have the same conversation multiple times with different people.
Right.
Like they'd say, okay, what did you do on the weekend? And on Monday, I would describe what I did on the weekend and then learn some new vocab. And then with the teacher on Tuesday, which would be a different person, they'd also ask, oh, what did you do on the weekend? And I could kind of use that repetition to improve. Other times, like different teachers, like there was one teacher I had that was also really into film and cinema, and we'd talk about movies. With another one, it was more about like, I don't know, news items and, what was going on in Australia versus in Germany.
Mm.
Although most of those teachers weren't actually living in Germany because of the time zone. So they were Germans that had moved to Asia or to South America, actually.
Yeah, okay. And did you do any speaking practice on your own? Did you try to record your voice and listen back to it or anything like that? Or did you use reading aloud maybe as well?
I definitely did reading aloud, and singing. I tried to sing in German, which I guess kind of maybe improves speaking a bit. But yeah, if I was home alone, I would often be reading aloud actually,
Yeah,
just to
okay.
help with the kind of the natural flow of saying a sentence.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, okay. So you might reread a sentence a couple of times if you notice that the flow didn't feel quite right.
yeah, yeah, I would do that.
Wow, okay. And in terms of writing, so that was before ChatGPT and other AI. How did you practice writing?
So I had a subscription for Easy German, and so what I would do is watch one of their videos each day, and then they would have some exercises online. I would do the few quick exercises, and then there was always like a writing prompt. And it would be like,
Mhm.
how would you answer the question that they're interviewing people on the streets? Or, what did you think about this thing that this person mentioned? And I would use that. And then I just had a Word doc and I would write, I think I had a minimum, like I had to write a 50-word response or 60 words, something like that. Write my little thing, and then I would put it to their like forum where they had all the answers. And sometimes they would have people going through and checking, or other times I would go through that with one of my like italki teachers. I was like, hey, can you just read this? I mean, it's really only like 4 sentences. Can you just have a read and see if the grammar's off, or
Yeah.
I used the wrong word or something like that?
Wow, okay. And did you comment on some of the other users' things as well and try to learn from or create a discussion with other users, or you just sort of put it there and then hope that the people from the platform get back to you?
Yeah, I just kind of put it out there because I think some of them I started from the really old videos, so they're already a few years old at that
Mm.
point. So I think that like people weren't actively like using the forum on those posts anymore, but
Yeah, okay.
it was more
Okay.
the doing rather than the interacting, I would say.
Right, okay, yeah. And what level were you when you came to Germany?
Um, I think so. I'd finished B2 at that time in Australia. So my plan before I moved to Germany was to sit the C1 exam. So I moved to Germany in mid 2023,
Yeah.
and my plan was to sit it in Sydney before that, but I just got too busy with the move and everything. So I ended up taking it in Germany a few months later. But I think probably I would have been able to take it in Sydney, so C1 ish, I think.
Yeah, okay. I think you told me that you did an exam preparation course as well for the C1 exam.
It wasn't specifically exam preparation, but when I moved, my company paid for a German course.
Right,
So I
yeah,
just did
yeah.
a C1 course, and I think that was 8 weeks, 3 nights a week after work. And then I took the exam after that.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, when you moved to Germany, how did it then feel? As in, like, I mean, you obviously got to a very, very high level. What did that feel then, finally being able to come to Germany and have conversations with people?
On one hand, a bit daunting still, even though I could understand everything around me. It was in Australia, it was definitely like I was choosing when and how to speak German. Like I had these structured 30 minutes every day where I would join the call. And even if, the call itself wasn't so structured, it was like, this is my German time.
Yeah.
Whereas in Germany, it was like, you know, I would just go into a shop and just have to speak German then. Or at work or, in the train or whatever. So it was just, instead of being time that I chose, it was just all the time.
Yeah, okay. And did you feel comfortable in that situation, or what am I trying to say? So, yeah, I mean, suddenly it was this new language for you, and yeah, you can speak it quite proficiently, but those situations were still unfamiliar to you, walking into a cafe or if somebody asks you
Yeah.
something on the street. Yeah. And
There
as
were still
Australians,
some
we must be.
situations that I hadn't like practiced or didn't know the words for, like easy everyday things, like
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah.
getting money out at an ATM. Maybe I didn't have the right words or whatever. But
Yeah. Okay. And how did you feel in terms of your identity being an English speaker in Australia, speaking Australian English to then speaking German? Did you notice things that you hadn't expected in terms of how you felt as Caitlin in German?
um, I think it was kind of the flip side of like my identity before I moved to Germany. Like I was known as like Caitlin who was putting a lot of effort into learning German. And then moving to Germany, it was like Caitlin from Australia. So I had this like Australian identity and this German identity kind of.
Hmm.
Um, and it's kind of the same as when I visit Australia now. Like my kind of dominant trait is like, oh, she lives in Germany. Whereas here it's like, oh, she's from Australia. Like I'd never spoken so much about either country until I had that experience of moving.
That's so interesting, isn't
But
it? And then you get Germans asking about like the dangerous animals in Australia as well.
yeah.
Do you get that question a lot? Like, are you not scared of all of the the poisonous snakes and things?
Yeah, so often. And like I've lived in Sydney, in cities my whole life. Like it's not an issue.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not something we
yeah.
worry about. It's yeah. But there's
And
also stereotypes of Australians and stereotypes of Germans. So it goes both ways.
yeah, true, true. Um, and so you stopped learning German after a few months after you got to Germany because you said that you had this course that your employer was paying for.
Hmm.
How do you continue to learn German now? So you're not studying as much as you used to, but still, like I know, you keep finding new words, new situations that are new. So how do you continue to grow even though you're not learning formally anymore?
I think I've definitely had the privilege of always living with Germans since I've been in Germany. So previously with my flatmate and now with my boyfriend. So there's always been a native German speaker around at home. Um, and yeah, I guess I try and still consume as much media in German as possible. So I still read like novels mostly in German, even if they were like originally published in English. I will buy the German translation instead. Um, yeah, we get like a newspaper delivered in German. Just watching German TV as well. So.
Yeah, okay. So it's not super conscious. Like, do you have strategies if you've come across a new word or something like that? Like, if you're reading a book in German and you find a new word, do you stop and look that up or do you just continue?
Only if I don't, only if not understanding it means I don't really understand what's going on. Otherwise, I
Yeah,
just keep reading. Yeah.
yeah,
And
okay.
I always did that from the start as well. I was never one to like, oh, I need to look up absolutely every word I don't understand. It was more of like, do I understand what's going on? If yes, just keep reading.
Yeah, okay. So there was like some kind of secondary voice that was checking for you that you understood the content, that you knew, like you might get to the end of a page, you go, hang on a second, I didn't really understand
Yeah,
that. So you would
exactly.
go
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
okay.
really realize like, yeah, what were they were they arguing in that scene or, why was she upset about something? Can go back and kind of look at it again.
Yeah, okay.
Um, and I often read on Kindle, so it was really easy to just click on the word and it brings up the translation. So maybe I would just quickly look it up for 1 second, but I never wrote down words to remember or to practice later or anything like that.
Yeah, okay. And how do you prevent a lot of learners, particularly German speaking English learners, they use a lot of structures in English that might be according to German grammar or German vocabulary, which they've translated into English. So, how do you prevent using English words and phrases when you're speaking German?
Um, I'm not sure. I think just if I don't know how to say it, I'll try and say it a different way that I do know how to say.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I think like with the kind of sentence structure, like listening to like 1,000 hours of German, like kind of drilled in what sounds natural and what doesn't sound natural.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
and then I think if I catch myself saying the wrong thing, I just like correct myself and keep going.
Yeah, okay. So it sounds like you've developed a pretty strong intuition about what structures are sort of more natural German. So you would tend to use those first instead of translating word for word from English.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think because I didn't, a lot of my learning, I guess, came from this like input. There is a lot of things that I was never taught in German, like taught how to use this word or how to use this, structure or whatever. It just came from hearing it over and over again. And
Yeah,
then
yeah,
it
yeah.
sounded natural and then I would use it myself.
What is, can you think of a piece of vocabulary or grammar or something like that that was like really, really weird to you at first?
Um, I remember never really like, I think I just must have skipped the whatever level, like we learned how to use like wurde as like kind of, I don't know what it's even called, like conjunctive zwei, let's say. I don't know what it
Yeah,
is in
yeah,
English.
yeah.
And so like how I would use it, like it just came from hearing it or seeing it written. And like I don't remember ever actually like having exercises about learning that or anything.
Yeah, okay. Just through seeing it and going, oh, that's new. Yeah, okay, but I understand
Yeah,
what it means. Oh, that's how you
yeah.
communicate this idea. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So yeah, you said that you've been lucky that you've always lived with Germans, and I know that your previous flatmate was German speaking as well. Was that a really conscious decision of yours to create this German environment so you could practice it?
I think, well, I was definitely focused mainly on like finding an apartment at the beginning. Um, but once I moved in, like one of the very first conversations we had, like she'd also lived in the UK before. She has really perfect English. And she was like, would you prefer that I speak to you in German or would you prefer that I speak to you in English? And I said, speak to me in German. And since then, it was 100% German.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
she would always find it a bit weird when she would hear me on the phone to my family in Australia. She was like, oh, yeah, I forgot that you've got an Australian accent. Like, I never hear you speak English.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, nice. Yeah, I guess a lot of people struggle with the finding the regularity to be able to practice it, but I think a lot of people might wait passively until situations come to them. But I think it's good to kind of consciously say, "Well, I need to practice this as well," and take advantage of that. I think a lot of people in your position would have said, English, please."
Yeah, I think because it was kind of the reason why I moved as well was
Yeah. Okay.
for the language. So I also enjoyed speaking it. So
Yeah.
it
Cool.
wasn't.
And yeah, you said you went to Australia with your boyfriend. What was that like for him? So he's German, and that was his first time in Australia, I think. I'm pretty sure as well, right?
Yes,
So what
it
was
was.
that experience like for him?
He really loved it. Yeah, he thought it was great. I didn't think he didn't really struggle with like the Australian accent or anything. Um, we speak a mixture of German and English, so he was used to my accent. I think maybe he found some members of my family a bit harder to understand.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, he'd also lived in South Africa for a year where he only spoke English, so for him it wasn't there wasn't any problems with the language, and yeah, he really enjoyed the experience of seeing where I'm from and experiencing the culture and yeah, I guess getting out of Berlin winter for a bit and going and enjoying a nice Australian summer.
yeah. Was there something in particular that he um, didn't expect that he experienced?
Um, I think the friendliness of Australians. I remember him talking about just like we were at like a caravan park and we had a camper van and just like chats with the people next in the next caravan or camper van or whatever. Or we were missing a part for our water hose and they lent it to us. And then at the end, they were like, oh, just keep it. Like, we'll just get another one. You
Oh.
guys need it more. Or like, just these really like friendly, nice interactions. And he was like, no, that would never happen in Germany. Like,
Yeah, okay. And is there something in particular that you miss about Australia, or that let's say you go home tomorrow, what's the first thing that you would do to kind of connect with Australian culture?
I feel like I don't miss Australian culture really. Like, I just miss people there. So it's, the perfect situation I think was with it is if all my family and friends were living here, because then
Yeah, yeah,
I could have the best of both worlds. But
yeah.
I,
Okay.
I still like going back to Australia and visiting. But yeah, for now I'm
I, re-
happy living.
I really like some of the biscuits, like Tim Tams, of course, and mint slices.
Yeah, mint
And
slices. We bought some back, and yeah, my boyfriend's family, we gave them a few packets, and they loved it. So my parents also bought some back here when they visited. So
nice, yeah, yeah. I think I always manage to find a way to fit 1 or 2 packets of them in my suitcase coming back.
yeah,
Mint slices are kind of like I think it's called After Eight, right? This mint
the
chocolate in
chocolate. Yeah,
Germany.
yeah,
Yeah, but they're thicker and have more biscuit in them, which yeah, they're pretty good, but they're very addictive as well. So it's very easy
yeah,
to almost eat an entire packet in one go.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Yeah, cool, Caitlin. I think, yeah, is there anything else that you think might be interesting to add at this point?
Um, yeah, not really. I guess, yeah, it was just, I wouldn't say I'm actively learning anymore, but my active learning phase was, yeah, really a really enjoyable hobby for me.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so yeah, maybe I'll try and learn another language one day. But
Actually, sorry, yeah, I just remembered there was something I wanted to mention to you, but you and I were talking a couple of weeks ago about your Spanish too, and it was you
yes.
mentioned that you know now what it requires to learn a new language, so you were like satisfied that you weren't making progress because you know that when you have time you'll invest more into
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah. So I started learning Spanish, and I was doing like one-on-one classes on italki, but it was just 1 hour a week, and I was not really motivated to do the homework. I wasn't motivated to kind of do any of this extra listening and writing and reading and everything I did for German. So I would completely forget what we'd done week to week and just kind of have to repeat half of what we'd done the week before. And after about 6 months, I was like, I'm not really enjoying it. I'm kind of dreading going to the classes because I haven't made any
Yeah.
progress. I haven't done the homework. Um, so I think it was just I didn't really. Yeah, I'm not sure. Just would rather do other things. Just right now, at the point I am in life. But I think yeah, I could come back to it at another time, maybe.
Hmm. That's so interesting that you had the experience of being really, really motivated to learn German.
Yeah,
A lot of learners learning English might feel frustrated that they're not making any progress, but they are not putting in as much time as you were at that time. They might not have that time, unfortunately. But yeah,
yeah.
it's
That's
nice
why I
that
think
you.
it's kind of the right thing at the right time.
Yeah,
Because I
sure.
also wouldn't have the time now that I could invest back then 4 years ago into it.
Yeah, okay. But I guess there's always like you might put in a lot of effort for a couple of months and then you can enjoy that for a little while and then you could take a break. It's not like a permanent thing, but a
Yeah.
period of life where you put in effort for a little while. Yeah. And what do you think German so English speakers who move to Germany who struggle to learn the language as much, what advice do you think you could give them or what are they struggling with?
English English speaker. So like in my situation,
Yeah,
is that?
yeah.
Um, I think just try and find like one piece of media or something that hooks you and grabs you and motivates you to keep either reading or watching or listening. And then hopefully from that, like there's, another tap into something else in media. Um, and just try and practice as much as possible. Like I think you can't get around doing, uncomfortable things to get better. Like
Yeah, yeah.
there's no way to kind of hack it and not speak, but then be able to speak perfectly. Like you have to go through the stages of speaking badly to be able to speak well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's it. All right, cool. Well, I better let you go for the evening. It's now Monday evening, and you probably like to relax for a couple of hours. So thank you very much, Caitlin. It's been so nice to talk to you.
No, it was my pleasure.
Thanks so much for listening to this interview with Caitlin. If you're enjoying the podcast, why not join me in my new learning community on my Patreon page? In this Patreon learning community, you'll find a transcript of the interview with Caitlin, as well as some extra vocabulary practice from the episode, and you can also interact with me directly. On the Patreon page, you'll also find a growing collection of listening challenges and language tips about vocabulary and grammar, especially tailored to German speakers. You can access the page on your computer, but also on your smartphone, so you can use it when you are out and about. I'm currently offering a free month while I'm building the community, so you have nothing to lose at this stage. Just give it a go and see what you think. You'll find a link, as I said, to the Patreon, to this learning community in the show notes of this podcast and also in the description of the video. See you next time. Bye bye.